The baby boomer retirement has been held hostage by the housing crisis. 2008, we could have expected upwards to 4 million people to retire, 4 million baby boomers to retire in 2008. But because baby boomers tied their retirement to the equity in their homes, and equity in homes dropped like a stone from 2008 to 2011. 2007, we had $14 trillion of equity in our homes. 2011, we had 6. It arrested baby boomer retirement. But that's over, because the foreclosures are being cleared by the big banks. We're getting back to a real housing market. Baby boomers are going to be able to retire, and we could be looking at 10% of our labor force retiring, about 15 million people.
So what happened was, prior to the whole thing falling down, Ken, is that tremendous equity built in their homes,
Correct,
right?
correct.
They sell their homes, they take their money from what they got from their equity, right? They go move. They go to Florida, they go to Texas, they go to California, wherever they go to. That stopped for a while, but what you're saying is that's going to free up again?
It's freed up already.
It's freed up already.
Yeah, what we're seeing is more than double-digit increases in housing values already, equity in the homes. Mm-hmm. So once houses start to move, boomers are going to retire like crazy. You have to understand the housing crisis. Okay, the housing crisis was precipitated by foreclosures. About 9 million bad loans were discovered in 2009. That's enough to crush the housing market. The housing market is the economy is the housing market. But what's going to happen now that the foreclosures are being cleared is we don't have enough homes, because the two biggest populations in the history of our nation, the baby boomers and their kids, are living under one roof. And now their kids are 8 years old to 27 years old, which means they're bumping up against getting married, which means they're starting to move out at 4 million a year, moving out. We don't have enough homes.
So what we also have going for us when it comes to the baby boomers, Ken, is that they were a very integral part of the workforce. And of course, they've been going up and up and up. So there's a lot of managers and senior manager jobs that are held by baby boomers. And because of the economy, and I mean, they're not the richest group in the world, and not the poorest either. They're among the healthiest. But essentially, a lot of them have decided to stay in the workplace.
Yeah, about 15 million of them.
15 million out of this.
Why do you think we have 50% unemployment at the other end? Why do you think kids coming out of college have no opportunity to work?
Because they're not moving.
Yeah, well, because there's no movement at all. People are not leaving at the other end. They're going to leave suddenly, and that's going to suck in Generation Y. Generation Y is currently 8 years old, 27 years old. Mm-hmm. It's going to suck them in like a vacuum into the labor force, but it's going to create human resource havoc across the nation, because human resource people are looking at baby boomers in the workforce, Generation X in the workforce, people 28 to 47, and now Generation Y coming in and freaking everybody out with tattoos and piercings. It's going to be a fun place.
So all of our staff here, I mean, take a look at this group that we have here, Ken. All the camera people, the sound people, and the people in the studio, these are all young guys and young women, right? So what you're saying is what? They're going to have to wait for a while till we decide to retire, or what?
No, there's not going to be much waiting. The job market, this time next year, we're not going to recognize the job market. We have about 8% unemployment in the United States right now.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's down to 4% in a year or 18 months, because the baby boomers are retiring. For every baby boomer that retires, you create a job. Mm-hmm. And the housing market, for every house you built, you create 3 jobs. For every house you sell, you create a job. You combine just those.
You think it's going to happen that fast, Ken, huh? Within the next year?
Oh, it's happening right now. It's all over the Wall Street Journal. It was full page last week. People aren't reading. You know what we do? We project, we look in a rear view mirror and say, boy, things are bad. Why don't you look out the windshield? Uh-huh. Things are fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, if you say so, because I mean, it's a large brain drain there, that's for sure.
Well, why don't you call me on it, okay? Mm-hmm. Call me on it. Go back to my 2005 book and read what my projections were, 2008 and then 2011. I'm not that smart, but I can count.
Okay, next. Immigration is a major issue in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And I read some comments that you feel that there's going to be a massive Asian immigration to the United States.
It's already started.
Okay, tell us about that.
What do we think about when we think about immigration? We think about Latinos and how much we dislike them coming in here and taking advantage
across the border.
Yeah, what's a bunch of nonsense. We're a nation of immigrants, and we always pick on the last people in. We should go find a Latino, kiss him on the lips, and thank him for coming because we needed him. They filled in exactly where we needed them in our population. But that's not the big story. In 2010, we had 380,000 legal Latinos come into the United States, but 430,000 Asians, the majority of which were from China. There's going to be a mass exodus from China because China is a total paper tiger, and their economy is a facade. A total facade. So if you're in China, you want to raise a family and you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the EU, you're going to go to Eastern Europe, you're going to go to Africa? No, you're going to come to the Americas. Canada, United States, Mexico, and Central and South America are going to become the center of the earth.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that when you say there's going to be a massive exodus from China into the United States, frame that.
Frame that for 500,000 already?
500,000 already?
500,000 a year
and
already.
And a running rate of what, a year?
It depends on how they issue the visas, because the visas are different for the Asians than it was for the Latinos. The Latinos could come in and take jobs. Asians are not allowed to come in and take jobs. They have to come in high net worth and they have to create jobs, and it's exactly what they're doing. If you want an idea of what the United States is going to look like with Asian immigration, take a look at Vancouver. In Vancouver, a 1,000 square foot condo sells for $1 million. It looks like Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. They're coming here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Big time.
Well, okay, so you're saying that it will be more Asian than it will be Latino? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And how about Middle Eastern, African? No.
African small. Africa is essentially a disaster. Sub-Saharan Africa keeps on fragmenting into smaller and smaller lawless countries. Mm-hmm. You know, we read about the Blade Runner and that issue that he had. You know, he shot his girlfriend. If you understood the crime rate in South Africa, you would understand that. Mm-hmm. You'd have a much better perspective on that. No, the people that are going to come here are going to come here from Eastern Europe, already are. The EU will begin to bail probably in about 5-10 years in all of Asia, including South Korea.
Okay, explain to us the generations. Each generation usually has a name.
Yeah, they do.
What are the last 4, let's say?
No, better than that. Let me explain. Okay. How I approach the generations and how my group and I approach generations in research. Baby boomers are a 20-year generation. Generations have been 20 years since biblical times. It's the amount of time from being born to when you can start again. Mm-hmm. Baby boomers were born in 1945 to 1964. Right. The generation before them was born 1925 to 1944.
And what are they called?
They're called the silent generation, and they were tiny. It was a tiny generation because there was no immigration during that period, and the fertility dropped like a stone during the war and during the Great Depression. The generation before that, 1905 to 1924, was a huge generation. It was almost 60 million people on its own right. Another 10 million people came here from Europe. These were the baby boomers' parents. Large generations beget large generations. Beget large generations. Small generations beget small generations. So the generation after the baby boomers born 1965 to 1984 was a small generation. Mm-hmm. It's called Generation X.
Generation X.
It's 11% smaller than the baby boomers. It's missing in critical mass 9 million people. Messed up everything. It shut down maternity wards, it shut down public schools, it shut down whole categories of commerce, it shut down the motorcycle industry, it devastated Detroit, and it was the tipping point for the housing crisis.
So that means there's not enough people to replace the baby boomers?
Correct. But who filled in the gap? Latinos. In 2007, we set a record for birth, 4,316,000 births. That record was set previous to that 50 years earlier, 1957, mm-hmm. with 4,300,000 mm-hmm. births. 25% of the births in 2007 were Latino. Without Latinos having babies in our nation, without babies, you don't have a country in 50 years.
Let's go back to China just for a second, because it seems to me that, at least from the national media perspective and the national political perspective, they hold up before the American people this powerhouse that's over there, right? Now, I may be firing a little bit for effect, but the impression I got from you is that it's a little bit of a disaster over there in China, and a lot of the Chinese, educated Chinese, are going to be coming to America. So why are we so fearful of them? Because people don't understand the dynamic you're talking about?
I don't know. You know, I was asked that by an editor of Wall Street Journal, and they said, why doesn't everybody know this? And I said, I don't know. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. All it is demography. You want to understand China? China instituted a one-child-only policy 33 years ago. That means they cut their fertility by 75%. They went from 4 children per couple to 1 child per couple artificially, mandated by the state. Okay, that's all. That's fine. But where's the future labor force?